Have you ever seen a portal to another dimension or know one close to you? There are a lot of people who seem to go missing every year, and one of the theories is that there are interdimensional X points in the electromagnetic field that actually create a portal, a vortex, or an opening to another dimension, another place, or another time. And tonight we're going to go over my top 5 most plausible portals in North America.
You ready?
There is a connection between the paranormal, UFOs, and the myths of ancient history. The clues are scattered across the landscape from a forbidden past, maybe even in your own backyard. There is a connection between the true nature of our reality, consciousness, and the unexplained. I'm Carl the Crusher. Let's explore the unknown. First of all, big shout out to the Crusher crew. If you want to join and become a part of the Crusher crew, you can do that on my Patreon page. The link is down in the description below. You can also support this channel by buying some of my merch and awesome products on my Etsy store and through my website, and also by going on tours with me to Mount Wilson Ranch. You can come and do investigations with me there, and the cost per person, even for the whole tour, if you bring a group of 14 people, is about $190 a night. It's awesome for everything that you get to do, and you're actually going to be in one of the locations that we're going to talk tonight about. First on our list tonight is none other than Skinwalker Ranch. Most of you know about Skinwalker Ranch and that I've actually been there. And I have heard Caleb Bench tell the story from his own mouth how him and Travis Taylor were there near the headquarters when they themselves saw a strange, glowing geometric shape that sort of appeared like a window or an opening or a prism, possibly to another dimension, or some kind of a cloaking thing that was moving across this ditch bank towards the mesa on the path of the Skinwalker. Now, there's been a lot of other strange anomalies there, gravitational vortexes and lensing sort of events and anomalies that seem to be in conjunction with the ancient stone circle on the mesa and something that appears in the sky. Now, there's probably more information coming out about this in season 4, so you're going to have to pay attention to that when it comes out on the History Channel. And there's a lot of other interesting side projects and research going on and around Skinwalker Ranch, trying to understand how the phenomenon might be connected in a bigger way, in a bigger picture, that we could talk about in a whole other episode in the future. But for now, we're going to go a little bit back to the beginning.
Skinwalker Ranch is a remote 500-acre property in Uinta County, northeastern Utah, which gained its notoriety in 1994 when the Sherman family purchased it to live a simple, private life. However, the family would soon experience dozens, perhaps over 100, unexplainable events that forced them to leave the property after just 2 years. These events ranged from sightings of strange canine animals to missing equipment, and even to the point of being harassed by supernatural entities that attacked their livestock. The book, Hunt for the Skinwalker: Science Confronts the Unexplained at a Remote Ranch in Utah, by Dr. Colum A. Kelleher and George Knapp, brought the details of the strange events to the public eye. The book describes the Shermans' experiences, including their encounter with a giant wolf that seemed invulnerable to their attacks. After shooting the wolf several times, it continued to stare at them before walking away unharmed. The Shermans also witnessed blue orbs hovering above the cottonwood trees a mile away from their homestead, which sometimes appeared flat and elongated, and sometimes round as the moon. As the events on Skinwalker Ranch grew stranger, the National Institute for Discovery Science, NIDS, was formed to investigate paranormal activity, and their investigation eventually led to a government-funded program called the Advanced Aerospace Weapons System Applications Program. The program was contracted to the newly formed Bigelow Aerospace Advanced Space Studies to investigate Skinwalker Ranch and other paranormal cases. The investigation was funded by the Defense Intelligence Agency with $22 million, and around 50 people were involved in the investigation from 2008 until 2012. The investigation failed to find any hard evidence to support the claims of paranormal activity on the property, and the authors of Hunt for the Skinwalker acknowledged the difficulty of finding evidence. However, the book has also been criticized for errors in its account of the events, particularly regarding the prior owners of the property. This has caused me to also work with former security officer and personal friend of mine, Chris Bartel.
My friend Chris Bartel worked as a security officer at Skinwalker Ranch under the Bigelow era for over 6 years, at the same time simultaneously working around the Nevada test site at Area 51. And while he worked there, he is still to this day not sure how much of the time was spent where he was mostly like a human experimental guinea pig, where he was doing consciousness experiments and remote viewing experiments in the different abandoned homesteads on the property. And while he was also trying to protect himself by patrolling the property, surveying it like a crime scene, and spending most of his time with the patrol dogs in order to stay clear of all the weird head games and strange stuff that was going on at the time. But he also has told me personally in other accounts how he's encountered strange giant wolf tracks in the mud that seem to just go up on 2 legs and then disappear, and other weird incidents, as well as having sort of a spiritual vision awaken him, where his ability to take pictures, do photography, and even explore certain environments was like enhanced or opened up by the frequency, energy, and vibration of being on Skinwalker Ranch. And Chris Bartel is a good friend of mine still to this day, and we've done many research projects and expeditions together up and around the Uinta Basin, around Skinwalker Ranch, and working with Brandon Fugel's team around various properties and locations that might be connected to Skinwalker Ranch and the phenomena and even the geology and the location running underground. I do want to bring Chris Bartel back on the show. I've done other interviews with him over on my other podcast channel. Let me know if you think I should have him on here as a special guest. Let's also not forget that I've already done a 2-part series so far on this book, where they talk about over 800 UFO sightings that happened clear back in the 1960s up and around Skinwalker Ranch, even some of the first cattle mutilations that were ever reported.
The strange events that occurred on Skinwalker Ranch remain a mystery. Witnesses claim to have seen teleportation portals, mutilated animals, and even telepathic communication with the entities that inhabited the ranch. The government's interest in the property raises questions about their knowledge of the paranormal activity and their possible use of the property for secret testing. The mysteries surrounding Skinwalker Ranch may never be fully solved, but they serve as a reminder that there are still unknown phenomena in the world waiting to be discovered. In 2016, businessman Brandon Fugel purchased Skinwalker Ranch from the previous owners. Fugel, who had a background in real estate, was intrigued by the stories surrounding the ranch and saw an opportunity to invest in the property and potentially uncover the truth behind the mysterious happenings.
The ongoing research in and around Skinwalker Ranch has led me and my colleagues, including Chris Bartel, to continue to work with Brandon Fugel and his team around the circumference of the mystery and the phenomena and the unknown history and how it all connects. Chris Bartel is a good friend and has been key to this. And one of the things that we discovered is a location called Mount Wilson Ranch that is actually a predecessor to Skinwalker Ranch. I could sit here and talk about it a long time, but I have featured this in full length, full documentaries, hours and hours that you can go binge watch in order to catch up, in order to learn everything that you want to know about Mount Wilson Ranch. But for right now, here is a highlight to bring those up to speed who have no idea.
We're going to go to that park house over here. This is Mr. Bigelow's private office.
This whole place is crazy. Here we are. So we're going to be pulling up on the saloon.
Older handle. After 1900, they started wrapping them with leather and braided metal. One of the main areas right here. So you can see it's kind of, the band is small, but the band is larger right here. There's a lot of activity in that 7 point whatever range, which is the Schumann frequency. 7.3, it's right here, up to 7.8, which is exactly in Schumann. So between 7 and 8 hertz is the prime spot for remote viewing, positive altered states of consciousness, clairvoyance, clairaudience, you name it, and out-of-body experience.
With your device right now on top of something that's transmitting a signal?
Possibly. It's as loud in infrasound as if we were sitting at a concert right now. If we were sitting at a Metallica concert, this is what it sounds like right here.
Somebody's done it before.
Someone's done it before, a lot of times. There we go. Getting a little bit of my reflection coming off.
Not much. Holy balls.
Look at that!
Okay, you getting this?
Yes,
Okay,
dude.
jumping fucking balls. TikTok. This is not normal.
What did you get more?
A huge signal under right here, dude. Yeah, dude. I think you've got a void underneath with something under there.
So he's putting on the EEG device that'll read. It's basically capturing information.
Chris is lit up in theta like a Christmas tree right now.
It was like 1,000 lightning storms blasting me in the face. And then I saw my father, my son being born, like, and like shocks of life. Like, it was intense. That was intense.
So the Gateway experience or Gateway method came from the Monroe Institute, which is
I don't know that.
Go to CIA.gov and type in Gateway experience, and you'll see what I'm talking about.
CIA.gov,
Yeah, CIA's website. Watch that.
and they have it, yeah.
But anyway, it's the Monroe Institute. They were partnered up with the Stanford Research Institute guys, this NIDS, who was all up here too. And
So it's basically just been like consciousness research, trying to get people into astral projection in various states, but they were also using some of the Monroe tapes privately published for Army INSCOM to do remote viewing and help get the remote viewing state. And the thought is that after that point, the Monroe Institute became basically a money line. But the methodology and the technology actually works. It's just whether or not it's been tainted.
let's go over some historical context so everyone understands what we're about to do. Here's our team standing at Mount Wilson Ranch in front of the motel, the same motel where Bob Bigelow took the NIDS team and had his paranormal encounter with the ghost shaman in Motel Room 1. Here you have Hal Putoff, Jacques Vallée, Colm Kelleher, and Bob Bigelow and the rest of the team standing in the same spot. We also have Bob Bigelow, Jacques Vallée, and Hal Putoff standing above the Meadow at Mount Wilson doing some kind of research there. Follow Hal Putoff throughout this story. It gets interesting. We've got Hal Putoff, Kit Green, Russell Targ, and Pat Price in the next photo. These guys invented remote viewing and built the psychic spy program at Stanford that was used by the CIA. They were remote viewing everything from Russia to UFOs to Skinwalker Ranch and beyond. Hal Putoff, Phil Corso, George Knapp, and Colonel Alexander. NIDS, Bass, ATIP, Project Chameleon, aka Skinwalker Ranch, To the Stars Academy, Mount Wilson Ranch, they're all connected. You've got Hal Putoff, Lou Elizondo, and Eric Davis in the next photo. Here's Bigelow, Tom DeLonge, Elizondo all together. On September 14th, 1993, Bigelow, Linda Moulton Howe, Stephen Greer, Lawrence Rockefeller, and a whole team of notable people were at the Rockefeller Ranch in Wyoming. The current owner of Mount Wilson Ranch, Jeff McBurney, purchased the property directly from Bob Bigelow, and he said that soon after, one of the Rockefellers actually came to the property and said they wanted Jeff to take him to see the portal. The Rockefeller initiative included some major players. Here he is with an autographed photo with President Ronald Reagan. Reagan was announcing his Star Wars program, which included everything from MK Ultra to the MX missile program. Mount Wilson Ranch was a potential location for the MX missile site until archaeologists ran into a load of indigenous artifacts and multiple encounters with skinwalkers, the shaman, and even extraterrestrial encounters that began on the ranch. Here's Bigelow in front of the fireplace on the ranch, the same fireplace rumored to be designed by Howard Hughes himself, the same location we are researching today. NIDS was actively researching at Mount Wilson Ranch, and you can see in the photos in front of the motel, there's Hal Putoff. Keep your eye on him because he is going places with Bob Bigelow, and it might surprise you where. Bob Bigelow, Jacques Vallée, and Hal Putoff are going directly to Skinwalker Ranch. Hal Putoff, Eric Davis, Eric Bard, and Brandon Fugel. There they are, standing at Skinwalker Ranch. Eric Davis was one of the original physicists and researchers supposedly conducting research at Skinwalker Ranch. Eric Davis has interesting connections to some highly public figures in the UFO community. Jeremy Corbell, Gary Nolan, and Gary Nolan is the Stanford research scientist who's been going on Fox News and the New York Post claiming that people who come into contact with UFOs and paranormal phenomena can have health effects called interference syndrome. Similar MRI brain scans have been conducted on my friend Chris Bartel while he was working at Skinwalker Ranch. If you're surprised where Hal Putoff is currently working, he is alongside Tom DeLong at To the Stars Academy. Here he is listed on the advisory board right there on their main website. And this brings us back to Mount Wilson Ranch. Here we are back at the hill above the meadow at Mount Wilson Ranch with Bob Bigelow, Jacques Vallée, and Hal Putoff. Hopefully all of this information comes full circle back to Mount Wilson from Skinwalker Ranch and you see the connected pieces. I highly recommend that you go watch those videos about Mount Wilson Ranch, and I promise you there is a lot more that we still haven't even touched that is going to come out this spring and summer that you need to pay attention to and how it all connects. It also fits in with the Re-Indigenizing Minds project and this indigenous mapping system that blows the whole lid off of all of this. It's really fascinating. For our next location, we go to the south.
The Meadows Project is a book and research project led by Trey Hudson, a former military intelligence officer and paranormal investigator. The project is focused on a location in the south that is referred to as the Blackwater Anomalous Zone, or simply the Meadow. The location is kept secret to prevent it from being overrun by thrill seekers and people who lack strict researching protocols. The Meadow is a large field in the middle of a forest that is known for its Bigfoot sightings and bizarre occurrences. The team has had several strange experiences while researching the Meadow, such as things disappearing and reappearing and orbs following team members home. They have also observed strange electromagnetic and gravity fluctuations in the area. The exact nature of the phenomena at the Meadow is unknown, and the team is still searching for answers. The project is focused on collecting data and conducting research to better understand the strange occurrences at the location. One of the most striking experiences that Trey and his team had was when one of their team members was walking through the Meadow at night, and suddenly his heat signature turned into an orb or sphere, which moved several hundred yards in 8 seconds before turning back into a man-shaped heat signature. This type of anomalous phenomenon is not unique to the Meadows Project. In fact, similar orbs and spheres have been reported in other areas of high strangeness.
A common occurrence for Trey Hudson and his team is to have boxes or cubes actually appear on the ground or floating in the air, often detected on their FLIR thermal detection equipment. And they've even had one cube that appeared on the ground that was 6 meters wide by every measurement. And they know this because they were able to actually approach the object and take those measurements up close. Trey Hudson has also had the all too common occurrence where he has looked for a book on his desk that he knew was there, that he keeps in the same location all the time. And then he went back to check for it, and lo and behold, it's not there anymore. So he goes to bed, takes it easy, and then when he gets up the next morning, goes out there, right where it should have been on the desk, the notebook has returned. Similar things have happened to me up around Skinwalker Ranch and other strange locations where suddenly I've gotten really confused and I go to look for something in my backpack, like a flashlight or a camera or something like that. And all of a sudden it's like I can't see anything and I can't find it. I get in kind of a daze, and then it's like I'm on autopilot. I just put everything back in the bag, get in the truck, and go back home. And then the next morning I'll look in my backpack, and right where everything is supposed to be, there it is. And I can't explain why I couldn't find it in the moment. It's very strange. I highly recommend that you go get Trey Hudson's book. I will put a link down in the description below to go find it easy. I decided to take extra time with this next one because we're going deep underground and into the Grand Canyon in one of my favorite stories of all time. In fact, this is one of the stories that caused me to move down here to the desert Southwest, where I live right beneath Zion National Park and just a few hours away from the Grand Canyon. When I first heard this story when I was a kid, it blew my mind, and we're going to go there right now.
In 1908, President Teddy Roosevelt wanted to declare the Grand Canyon off limits to all timber and mining operations. It would take another 11 years for Congress to designate the Grand Canyon a national park. Sensing a final opportunity for adventure, explorer G.E. Kincaid took a boat down the Colorado River and through the Grand Canyon. The canyon was rich in minerals like gold, silver, and copper, and Kincaid wanted to see what he could find before the area was closed off for good. About 40 miles upriver from the El Tovar Crystal Canyon, Kincaid saw stains in the sediment formation about 2,000 feet up. He tied off the boat and got out to investigate. Kincaid couldn't find a trail, but after a short hike, he found something interesting, steps that wound their way up to a high shelf on the side of the canyon. He followed the steps until he came across a cavern entrance, an entrance that was clearly man-made. Kincaid entered the cavern and turned on his flashlight. On the walls he saw writing, but it wasn't English or Native American writing. It was ancient Egyptian hieroglyphics. Kincaid lifted his flashlight and saw that the tunnel ran far into the distance. When Kincaid noticed chisel marks in the walls, he drew his pistol, turned on another light, and slowly walked deeper into the gloom. He kept detailed notes of everything he saw. The main passageway is about 12 feet wide, narrowing to 9 feet toward the farther end. About 57 feet from the entrance, the first side passages branch off to the right and left, along which on both sides are a number of rooms, about the size of ordinary living rooms of today, though some are 30 by 40 feet square. These are entered by oval-shaped doors and are ventilated by round air spaces through the walls into the passages. The walls are about 3 feet 6 inches in thickness. The passages are chiseled or hewn as straight as could be laid out by an engineer. G.E. Kincaid now realized he was in a huge complex. He estimated that as many as 50,000 people could have lived here. In some rooms he found granaries with shelves of glazed pottery, many of which still contain seeds. He found cooking areas and a huge dining hall. The rooms were full of ancient artifacts. Kincaid carefully wrapped a few small metal and ceramic objects for later study. Another large room Kincaid described as an area for metalwork, a technology that should not have existed in this area. Here are found tools of all descriptions made of copper. These people undoubtedly knew the lost art of hardening this metal. Then he came across another large room, a crypt. The crypt had shelf upon shelf and row upon row of mummies, dozens of them. At this point, Kincaid realized he was in a huge complex. The question nobody could answer was, who were they? By the end of the expedition, G.E. Kincaid and Professor Jordan's team had discovered hundreds of rooms, barracks, granaries, metalworking shops, temples, and many, many living quarters. Though most of the rooms were empty, thousands of artifacts were found. They found swords and shields made of copper, bronze, and a gray metal that scientists in southern Arizona couldn't identify. Among the pictorial writings, only 2 animals were found. One was of a prehistoric type. Even with all the relics and all the writing Kincaid and Jordan found, they were still no closer to determining who built the citadel. According to the Hopi, the first people of the world entered through the Grand Canyon. They believed that a reptilian race emerged from the canyon thousands of years ago, and that cataclysms hit the earth soon after, and that the Star People helped them survive these disasters. The Hopi have a particularly intriguing legend about the Ant People. These are humanoid creatures that are smaller than humans, with pale skin and large eyes like an insect or alien. According to legend, the Ant People took the Hopi to safety underground during the cataclysms and taught them how to live in harmony with the earth. They supposedly flew silver canoes in the sky, which made a humming sound and could maneuver like an eagle and move at great speeds. The Navajo and Pueblo also have stories about the Ant People or Star People. The Navajo described them as benevolent beings who helped their ancestors during difficult times. They say that the Ant People provided the Navajo with food and shelter when they were starving and taught them how to plant crops and hunt. The Pueblo have similar stories and believe that the Ant People were responsible for creating the world as they know it. These stories are fascinating and offer a glimpse into the rich cultural history of the Southwest. While they may seem like myths or legends to some, they are deeply meaningful to the people who have lived in the area for thousands of years. The Grand Canyon is more than just a pretty landscape and a spot for tourists to take selfies. It is a place of deep spiritual significance for many Native American tribes.
We had several really good stories today of where there could have been interdimensional portals or entrances into the underworld. Let me know which one was your favorite. I also have a bonus one that would have made this list a total of 5 actually, around Mount Shasta. But I felt like that one was going to take about half of the time of this entire video, along with the Grand Canyon. So we're going to save that for another video and give it an entire section all to itself. I've also talked to Roger and Colleen Gorman, and they're going to come back on and talk more about the Re-Indigenizing Minds project. And you guys, I'm really grateful for all your support, for checking out my Etsy store, and we'll see you guys in the next one.